Okay, so to pick up where we left off with the reassembly, we have our vent plug. We're going to put that in finger tight for now. Once this is installed back on your vehicle, while it was off, you should be flushing your angle rams, or before you use it for the first time, you need to make sure you flush your angle rams. After your rams are flushed, you're going to need to work the plow back and forth, left and right, about 10 times. That'll help push any air left in the hoses back into the reservoir, and then you're going to need to top it off again. So there's no point in putting this in tight, because you're just going to need to remove it and refill it once it's back on the vehicle. Okay, now I know that in the beginning of this video I mentioned that we're going to be putting new coils, new valves, and chances are you won't be. You might, you probably won't be. So in the interest of that, I'm actually going to go over how we prepare the valves to be the coils to be reinstalled onto the valves. Here's a C coil. Don't remember if this is the one that came off of this or not. Here's the B coil. And the A coil that we took off is the 3/8. The coil that's going to be going on here is the 5/8. So I'm going to need to find a 5/8 to get on here. Bear with me, we've got quite a few 5-gallon pails full of valves here. There we go. Alright, so there's a pretty rusty one. Work fine for what we're going to do here. Clean these off. First we use our solvent. Alright. Gently blow them off. Next you want to inspect them, and the main thing you're looking for is where the wire comes out of this little grommet. You want to look for breaks in the wire by bending it side to side. This one seems to be okay. Do the same with our B. Take a look there, real close. If you don't want to see any breaks in the wire, if everything looks good, you go ahead. Same thing with the A. Look for breaks in the wire. Everything looks okay. I don't know if you can see up inside of this. On the bottom of this surface, on the inside, it's going to make a ground when this is slipped onto the valve. It's also going to ground via the threads of the valve and where the nut makes contact with the top of the coil. So for that reason, take our angle grinder and we lightly clean off around the holes in the tops of the coils. You don't need to clean the whole top off, just where the nut's going to make contact. Like so. should also take a look up inside like I was just talking about and look for heavy rust. You can use your pick and scrape some of that off if there is heavy rust in there. This one here doesn't look very bad at all. The A one looked brand new. And the B's got some in there. So just scratch that off as best we can. Like I say, we can clean the tops of these to help improve the ground. I'm going to turn the unit into vise now. So you can get a better look at what we're going to do. The red wire is the B coil. It goes to the front, furthest away from the couplers. The C is in back of that. Okay. Now, from the factory, we see these quite a bit where they come with the wire exiting this way and then bent around the back. What we like to do is make sure that we turn these so that the wires are already facing the back, because this is where they're going to be coming out anyway, where you make your connections. So we route our wires around the back, under the coupler in the back. Okay. We have brand new lock washers, split lock washers we'll be using. Put one on each of these. Okay, now we go back to our anti-seize compound. We don't go crazy. We use the pick. Just get a little dab. Get that on the threads. Okay. Then we have our 1/4 inch brass nuts. Thread those on there. Grab our 7/16 wrench. Snug these down. You don't need to go crazy. These would almost work with duct tape holding them on. As long as there's a ground and the coil is being held over the valve, it'll work. Okay. Turn the unit again so you can see the A valve on the back. We're going to install the A coil. Same thing now with this. We want to make sure that the wire is pointing up. So we'll slide this on. Make sure it's all the way on there. We have a brass nut for the A as well. Anti-seize compound. A little dab on the threads. Don't have to go crazy. This brass nut is a 9/16. Sometimes these have a 9/16 holding them on, sometimes it's a 1/2 inch. We've seen both. Again, you don't have to go crazy. Just get it snug. Grab yourself a paper towel. Wipe off the excess. Could use a little solvent if you want. Same thing on the tops. B and the C. Because then what we do, and I'm not going to do it now because this is going to be rebuilt, sandblasted, so these are coming off. We take clear silicone and we just fill that in. We fill in the tops of the nuts on top of the B and the C coils as well. Just give them a little dollop of clear silicone. Between the brass nut, the anti-seize, and the clear silicone, these nuts will come off a lot easier in the future. So we're kind of trying to look ahead as we're doing this rebuild as well. Alright, so we've got our coils back on, which leaves just the motor. And again, because you're not replacing your motor, most likely you are not, we're going to tear down that motor that was originally on this unit, show you how to get that ready to be put back on. So, move some tools out of the way here. I'll tell you right now, plan on at least a whole can of solvent getting this thing clean. At least. The inside of the motor is going to be loaded with carbon dust, which I guess could be blown out, but it's a heck of a cloud. Not something I'd like to breathe. So rather than blow it out, we use solvent. You're going to need a sheetrock knife or a razor. The easiest way to clean off the gasket here, I'm just going to blow some of this off because there's some loose dust on here. Alright. Take your razor and carefully cut off the remnants of the paper gasket. I'm not lefty, but just to show you. Let's see. You're just going to want to hold this flat and get it underneath the gasket. Alright, I'd rather do it on the bench than in my hand. I'm just showing you here how to do it. Work your way around, slicing that paper gasket. Yes, it's paper. And this one was actually doubled up. Or, no, never mind. Get your remnants off there. Just keep going around with the razor, cleaning off what's left of that paper. Holding the razor flat. You're not trying to carve away any of the aluminum, you're just trying to get off what's left of the paper. Okay? Solvent. And lots of it. That cleaned off, you can see the bronze bushing better. You just want to make sure that the inside of the bronze bushing is clean as well. Looks like there's some burned on grease or some dried out grease. We just take our scuff pad, stick it in there, go around a couple of times. Alright, that's better. There's just a little bit of grease left in there, but that's clean. Alright, we're going to use our wire wheel on the grinder, because don't forget we cleaned off the surface on top of the gear pump where this mates, and you can see the heavy white corrosion on this piece here, and we're going to take that off very lightly with the grinder. See, we clean that up. I'm going to go around the other side. Again, very lightly. That cleaned off the paper and what's left of the paper gasket. I just very lightly went around the entire edge of the base of the motor. Put that piece here. Okay. Actually, I should put this on another bench because we're going to use this block of wood right now. So here's what we're left with. You might remember the stud was snapped off. The way to remove the top cap, being that now we have the bottom off, even if we didn't. The motor shaft protrudes past the bottom cap, so if we set this against the wood and gently use the weight of it and just give it a tap on the wood, it'll pop the cap right off, like so. And you can see, even though the stud's snapped off, these carbon brushes are in good condition. They got plenty of life left. The inside of the cap is actually pretty clean. And I'm not sure who makes this cap, but if you look inside of here, you can actually see this is just a normal hex bolt. Just a regular hex bolt. Usually it's a flathead and the wires are soldered to it, but there's actually ring terminals on the ends of these wires. So we could actually hold this bolt inside, hold the nut on the outside, either snap it off again or remove it and replace the bolt. And this could be reused. You got 4 springs that press on the carbon brushes. You want to make sure you don't lose any of those. We're going to clean this off with solvent right now. And then when you do this, you want to hold the springs. You don't want to blow them away. Gently blow this thing out. And maybe now you can see that bolt a little better. The hex bolt that I was describing. Right here. We're going to set this aside. What we're going to need to do with this also is remove the paper gasket as well that it's got here around the top edge. We'll be using our knife for that. You can see this has the paper gasket as well. We'll set it aside for now. Now, this part here, the only thing holding this in is magnetism. So you'll feel it. See it float? So you're going to have to push up on the bottom, grab the top, and pull it out. And now you can see the rust that I was talking about on this shaft that should be highly polished. It's not. Grab our scuff pad. See if we can take off some of that buildup, maybe more if it's dirt than it is rust. You can also see that washer that I was talking about on the shaft here. On this unit, it actually appears to be part of it. On most of these motors, it's a wave washer. It's not part of it. You can see it cleaned up pretty good. There's just one portion of it that's got some rust on it. You can clean this whole piece off. Blow it dry. Now here on top, copper plates. We clean those up with some 400 grit sandpaper, which we'll also use to remove some of the rust off of the shaft. So we'll set this aside for now. Now inside here we have our magnets. You want to take a close look and make sure that there's no cracks. Often these magnets will be shattered or in pieces. That's what happens when people smack motors with hammers. So we're going to clean all this carbon dust out of here and then have a better look. See what we got. So it goes into our pan. Solvent. Clean that down. This piece we're going to start out gently. Wow, it looks like I still got quite a bit more coming out of here. We're going to start blowing it off gently. Then we're just going to go full blast. Alright, you can see some metal shavings here stuck to the magnet. Not uncommon. We're just trying to blow those off with the compressed air. We're going to use our 4.5-inch grinder with the wire brush again. Clean the rust off of and what's left of the paper gasket off the top and bottom. Very light pressure. I wasn't pressing very hard at all. You'll notice there's a dimple here in the top along the edge. It leaves a little protrusion. That's to allow you to find the position that the cap needs to be in. There's a divot in the cap that'll sit inside this protrusion. There's another one on the bottom side. Same thing. It's for helping you line up the bottom. The magnets are further away from the top. On the bottom, they're quite close. So, because once you get this apart, you say, gee, now which way does it go? Where the magnets are further apart is the top. Okay? So I'm going to grab that piece of 400 grit sandpaper. Well, it turns out I got 500 grit. Not sure where the package 400 is. And we're just going to lightly clean this copper. Try to remove the discoloration. Very lightly, not pressing hard at all. Turn the piece of sandpaper so you get a fresh area. Work our way around. Alright, top of the shaft here looks very clean. No rust. You still grab it with your sandpaper. Just go around a couple of times just to make sure it's clean. This bottom part here is going to take a little bit more. See that rust coming off on the bottom. Alright, I'll clean that off with a little bit of solvent. See what it looks like now. Clean the top off. Blow and dry gently. Bottom still has one part here that's not the shiniest. This part here cleaned up nice. This part here could use a little bit more. You see how the top's nice and shiny now. When you find carbon brushes that are really worn down far or almost to the point that they need to be replaced, or where they do need to be replaced, oftentimes you'll find somebody put too much grease in the top cap when they put it on, and you'll find that these slits in between the copper plates are plugged up and clogged with carbon. So you just take our knife and just gently go down each one and make sure that there's no junk caught in the crevices. Work your way around, scrape out each one. Like so. These don't appear to have anything in them. Go over all of them anyway. Okay. Once again, hit it with the solvent. Blow it out. Alright. Now, setting this in here is tricky. You're probably going to get your fingers pinched. As soon as you get that in between those magnets, it's just going to get sucked in. So I have it sitting on this block of wood. I'm going to get it lined up, and I'm just going to drop it and let it bounce right in there. The shaft is going to hit the wood. Everything's going to be fine. Like so. See? The only thing that's holding it there is the magnetic force. Okay? So, I'm going to grab our paper gaskets, which we do enough of these. You'll see we have them hanging right here. Always ready to go. We've got 2 new paper gaskets. We sell these in our store. They're pretty hard to get, and that most places don't sell them. So, we do. I'm going to turn this unit in the vise so you can see better what we're doing with the motor. Okay. Actually, I should probably... No, I guess that's good. Okay. What we were doing with our angle block bolts, we're going to do the same for our motor bolts. I mentioned it when we were tearing it down. There's 2 sets of holes here. We're going to put never sees in all 4 of these holes, even the 2 that we're not using. That will help keep them from corroding in case in the future, for whatever reason, they need to be used again to hold the motor on. So just get some never sees in those. These holes are pretty deep. The bolts don't go in that far, the full depth, but they are pretty deep. So, just want to get my never sees in there. Anti-seize compound, whatever you call it. Okay. I think I am going to turn this to the front. I want to show you something that I do. This is usually how you reinstall the motors, facing this way. Trying to see my screen here with what you're seeing, make sure I'm getting what I need to. Alright. Grab a tool. One moment. I'm actually going to change my gloves too, because that carbon from the electric motor has them pretty black right Here's that tool that I needed to grab. Permanent marker. I my new gloves on. Alright, now, why do I need a permanent marker? We're going to use this hole. On the outside here I put a dot. Little black dot. Permanent marker. Take the base plate for the motor. Get that on there and aligned. You got to find your cutout. Here's the cut in the base plate right here. Slip that on. Rotate it until we find where the cut is. You look for it. Here it is here. Now, I'm not putting the paper gasket in right now. This makes things interesting. The divot's not sticking out on this unit like it is on most motors. So scratch that now. We're going to look through the bolt holes, make sure that we can see through. Hopefully you can see if I hold this up. See the bolt holes on the bottom side here? Yeah. Alright, we're going to mark that on the plate. Now, keep in mind, the top cap, the notch is always under the bolt. Okay, with the stud. So you know the stud's going to be facing this way. So we're going to mark this hole here, and on the base plate we're just going to put a dot. One dot. Doesn't have to be big, one dot. Okay. Now you know how to position this when we go to install it. Next is our motor bolts. I'm just going to clean them off with some solvent. They get pretty cruddy. Just going to scrape them off, wipe them off with a scuff pad. Not going to go crazy because they do appear to have some kind of a cadmium plating on them that's still intact for the most part. So I'm just going to clean off whatever's loose. And on the bottoms, I'm going to unscrew just like I do with the tank studs here when we did those studs. Just unscrew to clean the threads, like so. Same here with this one. Unscrew to clean the threads. Okay. Clean them off with solvent again, now that I loosened up any additional debris. Corrosion. Blow them dry. Alright, so those are ready. We're not going to put any never-seize or anti-seize compound on these threads because we're going to have to pass it through the motor. We don't want to get it inside the motor. And once they do pass through the motor, well, we got plenty of anti-seize compound in here, in the 4 holes. So we don't need to have it on the bolts as well. May as well put our paper gasket on the base. Now, because I don't have that notch to help me index where this cap needs to go, I'm going to put another dot here on the housing. Take my base plate off the motor. Alright. Take one of my paper gaskets. Sits on here. Take my oil. Put a little bit on my glove. Just a little dab. Wipe it on the inside of this bronze piece. And you just smear some oil on there. Very light coating. Not a lot. Very light. Okay. Now we can put our cap back on, our base cap. Line up our dots. Got those aligned. Okay, now take a flathead screwdriver and we align the shaft with the bolt holes, like so. Now we can set our motor in place on the unit here. Make sure that it's seated down. And we can see where our holes are. We line up our 2 dots, in this case 3, so that we know that our bolts are going to go in to the threaded holes. Okay. Now, we take our top cap, and our razor. We're going to clean the paper gasket remnants off of the top cap, just like we did on the bottom. See the way that's shaving off of there? In the interest of time, I'm not going to replace that bolt right now. The stud that's snapped off the side, because we're not going to be reusing this motor on this unit. Paper gasket on. Okay. That's set in place. Okay. Have our motor bolts. Get a 3/8 wrench ready, or a socket. I didn't look for mine. Now, the back of the Meyer factory service manual, there's a drawing that shows you the dimensions and tells you what material to make this motor cap tool out of. It holds the brushes in place. I've heard of guys using 2 hacksaw blades, a door panel removal tool. For what this is and for the amount of time it took us to make it, it's a godsend. It makes it so much easier to do this. But what you got to do is put your carbon brushes on top of the springs, and you have to get them in. See? Spring tension. Get them. You got to get 2 of them in. And you slip your tool on there, and your tool will hold those brushes in while you move to the next set. See how that's holding it in real nice? Holding those 2 brushes. Now I push the next one in, turn it a little bit, now it's holding the 3rd one. Now I just put the 4th one in, turn it back this way. Now I have it holding all 4 of the brushes in place. Okay? We're just going to turn this. Now remember, the notch in the top here, the notch in the top here has to go in line with the center of the stud, because that's where there's the notch in the bottom. So you get that lined up, you press down, you slip out the motor tool, the brush tool. Now all our brushes are making contact with the copper underneath. We can give this a little twist to get it aligned properly. Make sure it doesn't want to turn, which it doesn't. Hold this down. Put our bolts in. You may have to wiggle the motor a little bit to get them to start. Or maybe not. This is threading in pretty easily here. You turn down one of them, finger tight. You don't have to have the death grip on the cap anymore because now this is holding it down. You can use your socket, which I wish I had, or your wrench to tighten these bolts down. I believe spec on these is 35 inch-pounds. Kind of have a feel for how tight they need to be. You don't need to go crazy. Once you got them both making contact, go back and forth, drawing the motor down evenly. Alternate from bolt to bolt. Once you feel them stop, that's it. You don't want to go any further. This one's stripped. You can feel it pop. So going back to what I was talking about, I'm not going to do it now because I don't need to, but I have this hole, but there's also another hole here. And I could just turn this motor and use the second set of holes. And that's what we're going to do after we rebuild this unit. And get it all, after we sandblast this unit and I get ready to paint it, we'll make sure that the other holes are clean, that there's no issues with those, and we can put the motor on using the other two holes. So, at this point, this concludes the rebuild. We've taken care of everything. There's nothing left. There's nothing missing. The only thing left is putting it on the test stand. And with this particular motor on here, it's not something we can do. What we can do right now actually is take it off. A neat trick. When we go to take this off, the motor cap's going to want to pop off again. What we do is we take electrical tape. Now this is very rusty and there's not much for it to stick to. But we would take electrical tape and put it across this way and a crisscross. Another one across this way. Big piece of electrical tape stretched on real tight. On two ways, making a cross. When we loosen these nuts, or bolts, we can hold it all together so that the top doesn't pop off. Like I said, because the situation here, I don't need to do that right now. I don't care if it comes apart. So I'm just going to loosen these up. And we're going to put on a motor I happen to have sitting here that we've been using to test some other parts. We've been going through our used parts bin trying to find what's good and what's not. Mostly pumps and valve blocks. So we've been using a motor that we've just been swapping from unit to unit as we make those tests. And the new one has new bolts too, but I'll just show you what happens here when I let go. Just like that. Comes off. So we'll lift this off, put it to the side. Take my marker. I'm going to mark the other hole here, because we're going to use that now with this other motor. Okay. Now this other motor, it wasn't just a simple take it off and put it back on kind of deal. So my coworker actually taped the cap all the way around and the base as well, all the way around, so it doesn't come apart on them. Now we're going to turn the shaft so that it's in line with the bolts again, and with the bolt holes, so that it slips onto our pump. We'll have our pump shaft in line with the bolt holes as well. I can set this motor on here. Drops right on. Back bolt went straight in, all the way down. Front bolt's giving me a little bit of a fit. Not really sure what's going on here. Except this is an aftermarket motor. Like I mentioned before, sometimes the holes in the base plate of the motor aren't in a good position. You need to drill them out a little bit. Alright, I don't know what's going on here. Loosen that one back up again. Tilt the motor up. I can see that it's right over the hole, but it doesn't appear to want to go in. There it is. There we go, I caught the hole. Alright, the back one's in. Yes. Front and back are in. My wrench. Aftermarket motor. Threads are 1/4 on the ends of the screws, but the heads are 10mm. Much easier to be doing this with a socket. I didn't plan ahead and go get one. Kind of glad that we ran into the little problem so I could show you how to overcome it. In case you have a similar problem with your unit. I'm actually going to do a little bit more here. I'm going to add to this video a couple other units, possibly, maybe at least one. Other PA block. Hopefully it'll be a bit more difficult to get the valves out. We'll have to split the nuts and so on and so forth, so you can see just how bad it can be, which hopefully will help you as far as yours. If you may run into a situation like that where they're difficult to get the coils off, difficult to get the valves out. Alright, see that's snug. Don't need to go any more than that. Don't need to go crazy. Just get it snug. That's it. Okay. This happens to have the harness on it already. We have the same, should I say, the matching harness on our test stand, which is where we're going to move to next. For the last step, we're going to put this on the test stand and see how it operates. See you there.